Long ago, in the beautiful land of Israel, a dark time had come. The people had started to forget about the one true God who loved them so much. A man named Ahab was king, but he did not follow God's ways. He married a queen named Jezebel, who came from another country and brought her own gods with her. She did not love the God of Israel. Instead, she worshipped an idol named Baal, a false god made of stone and wood. She wanted everyone else in the whole country to worship Baal too, and she was very mean to anyone who refused to bow down to her idol. King Ahab listened to his wife, Queen Jezebel. He built a big, fancy temple for Baal right in the middle of the land. He put up altars where people could bring gifts to this pretend god. Soon, many of the people of Israel were confused. They saw their king and queen worshipping Baal, so they thought it must be the right thing to do. They stopped praying to the God who had rescued them and given them their land. They started praying to Baal instead. It was a very sad and lonely time for those who still remembered and loved the real God. But God always has his faithful people, even when things look bad. There was a brave prophet named Elijah. A prophet is someone who listens to God and shares his messages with the people. Elijah was not afraid of King Ahab or Queen Jezebel. He knew that the Lord was the only true God, the one who made the heavens and the earth. He saw the people turning away, and his heart was broken. He knew that worshipping idols was wrong and would only bring trouble and sadness to the land of Israel. Elijah trusted God completely and was ready to do whatever God asked of him. Elijah knew he had an important job to do. He had to remind the people of God's power and love. He had to show them that Baal was just a statue with no power at all. This was a very dangerous job, because Queen Jezebel had promised to get rid of all of God's prophets. But Elijah's faith was stronger than his fear. He prayed to God for strength and wisdom. He prepared himself to stand up for the truth, even if it meant he had to stand all alone against the king, the queen, and all the people who had forgotten their true king. One day, the brave prophet Elijah walked right up to the powerful King Ahab. He looked the king in the eye and delivered a startling message directly from God. "As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives whom I serve," Elijah declared, "there will be no dew or rain in the next few years except at my word." King Ahab was shocked and angry. How could this one man dare to say such a thing? Rain was so important for the crops and the animals. Without it, the whole country would suffer. But Elijah had spoken God's truth, a serious consequence for the people's sin of worshipping Baal. Just as Elijah had said, the rain stopped. The sunny blue sky, which was usually a welcome sight, became a sign of trouble. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Not a single drop of rain fell. The little streams and brooks began to shrink. The green grass turned brown and crispy. The farmers' fields dried up, and their crops withered under the hot, relentless sun. The land that was once full of life began to look thirsty and sad. The people started to worry. Their false god, Baal, was supposed to be the god of rain and storms, but he was silent. The drought became very severe. There was a great famine in the land, which means there was not enough food for anyone. People and animals were hungry and thirsty. King Ahab was furious with Elijah. He blamed Elijah for all the trouble and called him the troubler of Israel. He and Queen Jezebel sent soldiers all over the country and even to other countries to search for the prophet. They wanted to capture him and punish him for what he had done. They did not understand that the drought was not Elijah's fault, but the result of their own choice to turn away from God. While the king searched for him, God was taking care of Elijah. God told him, "Go and hide by the Brook Cherith." This was a small stream hidden away from everyone. Elijah obeyed God and went to the hiding place he had chosen. He drank water from the brook while it still had water in it. God did not want his brave prophet to be hungry. So, he did something amazing. He sent ravens, large black birds, to bring food to Elijah every single morning and every single evening. The ravens brought him bread and meat, a perfect meal delivered right to his hiding spot. Elijah stayed by the Brook Cherith for a long time, safe from King Ahab. Every day, just as God had promised, the ravens came with his food. It was a quiet and lonely time, but Elijah knew God was with him. He could see God's power in this small, daily miracle. Who else could command birds to act as messengers and deliver meals? This time helped Elijah's faith grow even stronger. He learned to depend on God for everything he needed, moment by moment. The world outside was in chaos, but here by the brook, Elijah felt God's perfect peace and protection surrounding him completely. After a while, because there was still no rain in the whole land, the little Brook Cherith dried up. The water was all gone. But God was not finished taking care of his prophet. God spoke to Elijah again with a new plan. "Go at once to the town of Zarephath," God said. "I have instructed a widow there to supply you with food." This was a surprising instruction. Zarephath was in the country where the wicked Queen Jezebel was from, a place where people worshipped Baal. And God was sending him to a widow, a poor woman who likely had very little for herself. Elijah did not question God's strange plan. He got up and traveled to Zarephath. When he reached the town gate, he saw a woman gathering sticks. He knew in his heart this must be the widow God had told him about. He walked over to her and asked, "Would you be so kind as to bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink?" The woman was kind and turned to get him some water. As she was going, Elijah called out to her again and asked for one more thing. "And please," he said, "bring me a piece of bread." The woman stopped and turned back to Elijah with a very sad look on her face. Her voice was full of despair as she explained her situation. "As surely as the Lord your God lives," she said, "I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug." She told him she was gathering a few sticks to go home and make one last, tiny meal for herself and her son. After they ate that, she explained, they would have nothing left and expected to die from starvation. It was a heartbreaking story of hopelessness. Elijah listened to the poor widow's sad story. He felt compassion for her, but he also had a message of hope from God. He looked at her kindly and said, "Don't be afraid." His voice was calm and reassuring. "Go home and do as you have said. But first, make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have, and bring it to me, and then make something for yourself and your son." This must have sounded like a crazy request. He was asking her to give away the very last bit of food she had in the entire world. But then Elijah gave her an amazing promise from the Lord God of Israel. He told her, "For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." The widow looked at this strange man. She had to make a choice. Should she trust her own eyes and see only the tiny bit of flour and oil? Or should she trust the promise of this prophet and his powerful God? She chose to have faith. The woman went home and did exactly as Elijah had told her. She took her small amount of flour and oil and made a little loaf of bread for him first. Then, she went to make some for herself and her son. To her complete amazement, there was still flour in the jar and oil in the jug. It was a miracle. Day after day, she would go to the jar and the jug, and they were never empty. There was always enough for her son, and for Elijah. God kept his promise and provided for them all through the rest of the terrible famine. Some time later, another tragedy struck the widow's small, happy home. Her son became very sick. His illness grew worse and worse until finally, he stopped breathing. The poor mother was overwhelmed with grief. She cried out to Elijah, thinking this was some kind of punishment. Elijah's heart broke for her. He gently took the boy from her arms, carried him upstairs to the room where he was staying, and laid him on his own bed. He cried out to the Lord in a powerful prayer, stretching himself out on the boy 3 times. God heard Elijah's prayer, and the boy's life returned to him. He began to breathe again. Elijah brought the living boy downstairs to his mother, who was filled with joy and declared, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth." After 3 long years without rain, God's voice came to Elijah once more. "Go and present yourself to King Ahab," God commanded, "and I will send rain on the land." The time for hiding was over. It was time for, a public showdown between the power of the one true God and the powerlessness of the false god, Baal. Elijah knew this would be dangerous. King Ahab was still very angry and had been searching for him everywhere. But Elijah was a man of great courage, and he obeyed God without hesitation. He set out to find the king who hated him so much. Elijah first found a man named Obadiah, who was in charge of King Ahab's palace. Obadiah was a secret follower of the Lord, and had bravely hidden 100 of God's prophets in caves to save them from Queen Jezebel. Elijah told Obadiah to go and tell the king, "Elijah is here." Obadiah was terrified. He thought Ahab would surely kill him for knowing where Elijah was all this time. But Elijah promised he would meet the king that very day. So Obadiah went and told Ahab, and the king immediately went to meet his enemy. When King Ahab finally saw Elijah, his face was filled with anger. "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" the king snarled. He blamed Elijah for the drought and the famine that had destroyed his kingdom. But Elijah stood his ground and was not intimidated. He boldly replied, "I have not made trouble for Israel, but you and your father's family have. You have abandoned the Lord's commands and have followed the Baals." Elijah turned the accusation right back on the king, pointing out that the real trouble was their sin of idolatry. Then Elijah laid down a great challenge. He told Ahab to gather all the people of Israel on top of a mountain called Mount Carmel. He also told him to bring all of his special prophets, the 450 prophets who served Baal and the 400 prophets who served the idol Asherah. It was time to settle the question once and for all. Who was the real God? Was it the Lord, or was it Baal? Elijah, one man, was challenging the king and 850 false prophets to a contest. It was an incredibly brave move, driven by his absolute faith in God's power. A huge crowd gathered on the top of Mount Carmel. There was King Ahab, the hundreds of prophets of Baal in their fancy robes, and all the people of Israel who had come to watch. Elijah stood before them all and asked a powerful question. "How long will you waver between 2 opinions?" he shouted, his voice echoing across the mountainside. "If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal is God, follow him." The people were completely silent. They didn't know what to believe anymore, and they were afraid to choose a side. They just stood there, waiting to see what would happen next. Elijah then explained the rules of the contest. "I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left," he said, "but Baal has 450 prophets. Let us have 2 bulls. Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves, cut it into pieces, and put it on the wood of their altar, but do not set fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood of my altar, but I will not set fire to it." The test was simple and fair. It would be a competition between the gods, not the men. The people murmured their agreement. "Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord," Elijah continued. "The God who answers by sending fire to burn up the sacrifice, he is God." This was an exciting challenge. Baal was supposed to be the god of the sun and lightning, so sending fire should be easy for him. The prophets of Baal were very confident. They prepared their bull and their altar. From morning until noon they prayed and shouted, "Baal, answer us! Baal, answer us!" They danced and leapt around their altar in a wild frenzy. But nothing happened. There was no voice, no answer, no fire. The sky remained quiet and empty. As the day went on, Elijah began to poke fun at them. "Shout louder," he mocked. "Perhaps he's deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened." His words made the prophets of Baal even more desperate. They shouted louder and began to cut themselves with swords and spears, which was a terrible part of their ritual. They bled and cried out until the afternoon, but still, there was only silence from their God. Baal was powerless. When the prophets of Baal had finally given up, exhausted and defeated, it was Elijah's turn. He calmly called the people to come closer. The first thing he did was repair the Lord's altar, which had been torn down. He took 12 stones, one for each of the 12 tribes of Israel, to remind the people of who they were and the God they were supposed to serve. He carefully rebuilt the altar. Then he dug a deep trench all the way around it. He arranged the wood on the altar and placed the pieces of the bull on top of the wood. Then Elijah did something that seemed completely crazy. He wanted to make it absolutely impossible for anyone to say he had tricked them or hidden a fire. He turned to the people and said, "Fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood." They did as he said. Then he said, "Do it again." And they poured 4 more jars of water. Then he said, "Do it a 3rd time." They poured even more water. The sacrifice, the wood, and the altar were completely soaked. Water ran down and filled the entire trench. With everything drenched in water, Elijah stepped forward and prayed a simple, powerful prayer. He didn't shout or dance or hurt himself. He just spoke to God with quiet confidence. "Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel," he prayed, "let it be known today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord. Answer me so these people will know that you, Lord, are God and that you are turning their hearts back again." It was a prayer for God's glory, not his own. Suddenly, in an instant, the fire of the Lord fell from the clear sky. It was a breathtaking flash of divine power. The fire was so hot that it consumed everything. It burned up the sacrifice, the wet wood, the stone altar, and even the soil beneath it. It licked up every last drop of water that was in the trench. There was nothing left but scorched earth. When all the people saw this incredible miracle, they fell on their faces to the ground. They were filled with awe and fear, and they all cried out in one voice, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God." After the amazing fire from heaven, the people finally understood the truth. They had seen with their own eyes that Baal was nothing and that the Lord was the one true, all-powerful God. Their hearts were turned back to Him. At Elijah's command, the people seized all the false prophets of Baal. They could no longer be allowed to lead the people of Israel astray with their lies and their powerless idols. Elijah dealt with them according to God's law, removing their wicked influence from the land for good. The contest was over, and God had won a great victory. Now that the people had returned to God, it was time for God to fulfill the second part of His promise. It was time for the rain. Elijah went to King Ahab and told him, "Go, eat and drink, for there is the sound of a heavy rain." Ahab had just witnessed the most incredible miracle of his life, so he listened to the prophet. While the king went to have a meal, Elijah climbed to the very top of Mount Carmel to pray. He bowed low to the ground, putting his face between his knees, and prayed earnestly for the rain that God had promised would come. Elijah was sure that God would answer. But he was also patient. He sent his servant to go and look out toward the sea. The servant went, looked, and came back. "There is nothing," he reported. Elijah did not get discouraged. He simply said, "Go back." He sent his servant to look again and again. 6 times the servant returned with the same news. The sky was clear and empty, but Elijah kept praying with unwavering faith. He knew God would keep his word, and he would wait as long as it took for the answer to appear. On the 7th time, the servant came back with different news. "A cloud as small as a man's hand is rising from the sea," he said. That was it. That was the sign Elijah had been waiting for. He knew that little cloud was the beginning of God's answer. He immediately sent his servant to warn King Ahab. "Hitch up your chariot and go down before the rain stops you." Soon the sky grew black with clouds, the wind began to blow, and a mighty downpour began. The 3.5-year drought was finally over. The thirsty ground drank in the wonderful, life-giving rain. The story of Elijah on Mount Carmel is a powerful reminder for all of us. It teaches us about having incredible courage and faith. Elijah was just one person standing against a powerful king, a wicked queen, and hundreds of false prophets. Everyone around him was doing the wrong thing, but he was not afraid to stand up for what was right. He chose to obey God rather than follow the crowd. Sometimes it can feel lonely or scary to be the only one who believes in God or tries to do the right thing. But Elijah's story shows us that God is always with us. This epic showdown also shows us that God hears and answers our prayers. Elijah prayed for the rain to stop, and it did. He prayed for food, and God sent ravens and made a widow's flour and oil last. He prayed for a boy to live again, and he was healed. He prayed for fire to fall from heaven, and it happened in a spectacular way. Finally, he prayed for rain to come back, and a great storm arrived. Elijah's prayers were powerful because he had a close relationship with God, and he prayed according to God's will. God loves to hear from us and has the power to do amazing things. The people of Israel were confused, trying to believe in God and Baal at the same time. Elijah told them they had to choose. We also have to choose who we will follow. Will we trust in the things of this world that have no real power, or will we put our whole trust in the one true God who created everything? God proved on Mount Carmel that He is the only one with real power. He is the God who can do impossible things. He is the God who loves us and wants us to turn our hearts completely to Him, just like He wanted for the people of Israel. Most importantly, Elijah's story teaches us to trust God no matter what. Even when things are hard, when it feels like everything is going wrong, or when we can't see the answer right away, God is still in control. Elijah had to wait by a drying brook, trust a poor widow for food, and send his servant to look for a cloud 7 times. In all these moments, he kept his faith. We can have that same kind of faith, knowing that God is faithful. He keeps His promises, and He will always take care of those who love and obey